Hey everyone, ready to dive in. We're going to be unpacking Practical Buddhism by Arnaud van der Veere.
Okay.
And we're really trying to extract the practical insights from this book,
Yeah.
especially for those of you out there, we hear you, you want more than just theory.
Absolutely.
So we're going to explore how van der Veere connects that ancient Buddhist wisdom with the craziness of modern life, especially when it comes to things like relationships,
Right.
personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
and just navigating this hectic world we live in.
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me when I first picked up this book was just his unique background.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Muay Thai, right?
Yeah,
He discovered this path to spiritual growth not in a monastery somewhere, but through Muay Thai.
It is interesting. That's not the typical
No,
path you would think of
not at all.
to Buddhism, So it's like that in itself is a really interesting perspective. And it kind of speaks to that idea that you don't need to be, a monk living in a cave to actually live by Buddhist principles, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like he's saying, look, your everyday life, all the challenges, the frustrations, that's your training ground.
That's it. Yeah.
So how does he bring that into our very 21st century problems like relationships? He goes into love and sex and family life.
He does. Yeah.
Through this Buddhist lens.
He does. And it gets nuanced.
Yeah.
Like he talks about, for example, choosing not to have children and how that's totally okay.
Okay.
It's not about just doing what what society expects of you, but about making choices that line up with what you actually value, I guess.
And he really challenges those expectations, right?
Yes, he does.
He talks about monogamy, is this societal norm, is this really what we're supposed to be doing?
He's really making us think about that, yeah.
Yeah, question it. Is this even from the Buddhist teachings, or is this just something we've been told?
It's conditioning, yeah.
Okay.
And he stresses, honest communication in all relationships, regardless of what they look like.
Okay.
And it's not just about saying what's on your mind. It's deeper than that. It's about really understanding where the other person is coming from. Empathy.
It's about recognizing, I think, too, that we all have our own baggage and insecurities, right? And coming at it with a little compassion.
100%, yeah.
Which, in our world of social media, these curated online personas, it's so easy to forget that everyone's fighting their own battles.
Oh, for sure.
And that's where this whole concept of the ego comes in.
Yeah.
And I love how he doesn't say, get rid of your ego. He's like, no, you need
it.
A strong sense of self.
An independent, strong sense of self.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before you can really tackle this.
So you can break free.
Yeah, break free from it.
From that negative ego, exactly.
It's not about denying who you are. It's just about recognizing maybe how much we attach to these different aspects of ourselves.
Hold on.
And how that can lead to suffering.
And he gives this really thought-provoking list of what actually makes up the ego.
Okay.
And it's clinging to, material possessions and status and fearing death and even having too much national pride, all of these things.
It's those subtle ways that we define ourselves based on these external factors.
It is, yeah.
It made me think, wow, am I more attached to some of these things than I realized?
Right. And we all do it.
Yeah.
In different ways, yeah.
It's just about recognizing it.
It is.
And how it's holding us back from experiencing, maybe true freedom and happiness.
And speaking of attachments, he also talks about our relationship with food, which is so key.
That mindful eating section was
that's so good.
One of my favorites.
It's so important.
Because it's not just about what we eat, it's how we eat. Being present in those moments, savoring it, really being grateful for that nourishment.
It's huge. And he emphasizes that mindful eating's not just for your physical health, but for your mental clarity, for your spiritual well-being.
Which again, all these things are connected, right?
And he believes that what we consume directly impacts our mind.
Totally.
He has recommendations on what to eat. It's all about fueling your body and your mind.
So what are some of the key things? What should we be eating? What should we be thinking about to kind of sharpen our focus and stay calm throughout the day?
So he's not a fan of red meat.
Interesting.
He says it can really impact your mental clarity, your energy levels.
Okay.
Not in a good way.
Okay.
He suggests eating lots of fruits, vegetables, carbohydrates, obviously depending on, your age and how active you are.
Sure, yeah.
But the biggest thing he says is the timing of your meals is actually super important. And that eating in the morning is essential for having a clear mind all day long.
Set yourself up for success, right?
Exactly.
The beginning.
Fuel that mind.
Yeah, fuel that mind.
First thing.
Maybe this is a good place to transition into something that could be a little bit sensitive for some people.
Okay.
This whole concept of disability and karma, we got to approach it with some sensitivity and an open mind.
Open mind, yeah.
Because he does talk about disability as a potential karmic consequence of maybe, past lives, which is something that not everyone's gonna...
It can be hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it can be a difficult concept to grasp, for sure.
Totally.
And it is a complex idea, especially when we think about, personal responsibility versus, fate.
Right. Yeah, where's the line?
But what I appreciate about how he frames it is that he doesn't get stuck in, the why. Why is this happening? But more the how.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we live with this? How do we
work with it?
Yeah, how do we work with it? Rather than getting caught up in, the past, it's about being present and focusing on what we can control.
Exactly.
Our actions, our attitude.
100%. Yeah, focusing on what you can do.
Yeah.
Not what you can't.
And applying those lessons of karma, now.
Right now in this life.
Right.
Not getting stuck on maybe in a past life.
Yeah.
It's no, this is what we've got.
Yeah.
Let's work with it.
It's a good reminder that we always have that choice.
We do.
In how we respond to things.
We always have a choice.
Now, speaking of finding that peace and presence, I do want to get into meditation.
Okay.
Because that's often an area where people, I think, feel intimidated.
100%.
You have to have some special skill or be able to sit still for hours.
Yeah, you have to be a monk in a cave somewhere.
Exactly.
Sitting on a mountaintop.
But he makes it so much more accessible.
He does, yeah.
I think through this idea of Muay Thai as a moving meditation.
Yes. It challenges the idea that you have to be still to meditate.
Right.
You can find that presence, that focus, doing anything.
So it's about finding those moments of flow, in everyday life.
The mundane.
Whether it's gardening or, painting.
Could be anything.
Having a conversation.
Yeah.
How do we bring that same quality of attention to those moments?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think one of the things I loved was how he broke down the stages of meditation.
Yes.
Because again, it's this abstract.
Yeah, it can feel very abstract. It makes it like a journey with signposts along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to hit these roadblocks.
You will, yeah.
You're going to face those uncomfortable emotions that maybe you've been pushing down.
Really? Yeah, yeah.
And then he even talked about the glow of enlightenment.
He does.
And how there's stages of enlightenment.
Which I'd never heard before.
I know.
Broken down like that. It's really interesting.
That makes it feel less
intimidating.
Less out of reach.
It's achievable.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not without its hurdles and,
It's going to be tough.
challenges, but he really emphasizes the joy and the fulfillment.
It's worth it though.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
That can come from that.
The payoff is huge.
And speaking of practices that can lead to greater awareness and insight, he also goes into Zen Buddhism.
He does, yeah.
Which again, I think for a lot of people can feel very
abstract.
A little bit, maybe even intimidating,
Yeah. Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, it's I don't know.
I know, what does that even mean? But he brings it down to earth.
He does, yeah.
In a way that's applicable
cool.
to our lives.
Yeah, 100%.
And what I love is how much he emphasizes just being present.
Yes.
That's something, regardless of your background, your belief system.
It's universal.
It's universal. Yeah. It's that place of quieting that mind chatter, the worries of the past, the anxiety of the future.
Being here now.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's that in the zone feeling, whether you're really playing music or
100%
having a conversation or just watching a sunset.
Or doing the dishes even.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be anything.
Anything, yeah.
And he gives us guidance on how to cultivate that.
He does, yeah.
Not just in our hobbies, but
in every aspect of life.
In our everyday lives.
This is cool.
And I like how he's clear that it's not a destination.
Not a checkbox, no.
Zen is not
It's not a one and done, you don't get enlightened and then just coast.
It's this constant
evolution.
Yeah, continual growth and refinement.
This lifelong pursuit.
100%, yeah.
Of trying to live in accordance with these principles.
Yeah, trying to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Yeah.
So it's constantly learning, growing, evolving.
Yes. Trying to become more present, more compassionate.
Yeah, more aligned with who you really are.
Yeah, I love
stripping away all the BS,
But I love how he doesn't give you like a rigid set of rules.
Well, it's not dogma, yeah.
It's like, no, you find your own path.
Find what works for you.
You explore.
You experiment.
Yeah, it's a journey.
And you discover what works for you.
What resonates, yeah. And he encourages that.
Empowering.
Yeah, totally.
Like, here are the tools, now go build something cool.
Go build your life, yeah.
And speaking of building something cool, I want to go back to relationships.
Okay.
Because we talked about communication, but he also talks about, like, the nature of love.
He does, yeah.
Like, what is true love?
Yeah, good question.
And I think he really challenges that transactional aspect.
Yeah, that I did this for you, so you owe me.
Yes.
That is not love, he's saying.
It's so easy to fall into that.
It is.
Scorekeeping.
Especially in long-term relationships. And he's like, true love doesn't come from that place.
It doesn't. No, it's about giving without expecting anything in return.
It's about recognizing that it's an abundant resource.
Yes. It's not finite. You can't use it all up.
And like, the more you give, the more you get.
It's like energy, he says.
Yes.
You know, the more you give, the more you get back.
It was interesting. There's a section on wealth.
Oh, yeah.
That I found really challenged my own preconceived notions, because I think a lot of times we associate Buddhism with
renouncing material possessions.
Yeah, like giving it all up.
Right.
Living a very simple life.
Yeah.
Detachment from things.
And he kind of has a little bit of a different perspective.
What does he say?
It's more about like being grateful for what you have.
Okay.
But not letting it define you.
Not being attached to it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I love this. He said, wealth is a borrowed gift.
Ooh, I like that.
Like, we get to experience this.
It's not really ours.
But it's not ours to keep. Yeah, we can't take it with us.
And it's funny. He's like, people are out there praying for wealth. And it's like.
Right, like it's going to fall from the sky.
It's not how it works.
Like a winning lottery ticket. Come on.
It's recognizing that, you know, true abundance comes from a different place.
Exactly. It's about gratitude. Yeah. Generosity.
It's about that connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yes, 100%.
And that reminds me, actually, we didn't really touch on like the food part of it, because it's not just about advocating like vegetarianism or veganism, right?
Right. He takes kind of a broader approach, like, yeah, be mindful of the karmic consequences of what you're eating.
Yeah.
Think about where your food's coming from, how it was produced.
It's not just what you eat, it's the impact it has on, you know, other beings, the environment.
Yeah, like he's really emphasizing that interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Think about the ripple effects of your actions.
And he even talks about like factory farming, the suffering of animals.
He does. He's got some strong feelings about that.
And he acknowledges too, like how those traditional Buddhist precepts of like not eating meat are hard.
It's tough in this day and age, right?
To maintain, like in this day and age.
Especially, yeah.
Like back in the day when people lived in villages and grew their own food, it was probably a lot easier.
Totally.
But now with global supply chains, it's like, who even knows?
It's almost impossible to track it all.
It's impossible.
He's not saying you have to follow a super strict diet, but just like...
be mindful.
Be aware, make conscious choices when you can.
Yeah, reduce the red meat, lots of fruits and veggies.
Exactly, yeah. Those are always good choices.
And that mindful eating piece, like starting your day with a good, like nourishing meal to kind of set yourself up.
Fuel that mind.
Yeah.
So important.
So it's like, do the best you can with what you got, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the message.
Make those choices that feel aligned.
With your values.
Yeah.
And minimize the harm.
Exactly. Minimize the harm. And that, I think, plays into his whole vision of like a more just and harmonious society.
And he challenges this whole traditional idea of what a Buddhist community looks like.
Okay.
Like he actually proposes this model that kind of blends Confucian and Buddhist philosophies.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
So he talks about these communities being structured almost in rings.
Okay.
Like concentric rings, right?
Okay.
And the outer rings would be for families.
Okay.
Like where people are fulfilling those more traditional like Confucian roles.
Oh, okay.
Family, community engagement.
Okay.
But then as you move inward, there'd be opportunities for more intense like spiritual exploration.
Oh, okay.
More engagement with like the Buddhist teachings and practices.
So it's like a progression almost.
Yeah.
And you can kind of choose your level of like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Depending on what's going on in your life.
Right. Like honoring those family commitments, but also Like,
but still making space for your own spiritual growth.
yeah, that's spiritual growth.
And he's not just talking about individual fulfillment either. He sees this as a way to, like, heal some societal issues. He even suggests it could help create more balance between men and women.
Okay.
He specifically mentions, like, China, where there's that huge gender imbalance.
Right, right.
So it's like, how can we create these structures that are more equitable?
It's recognizing that, again, like that personal well-being, that societal well-being, it's all
connected.
into one big web.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into practical Buddhism, I want to go back to karma.
Okay.
Because that is something that can be confusing, even scary for some people.
Oh, totally. People think of it as like cosmic punishment or something.
Yes, exactly.
But that's not what it is.
And he emphasizes that, like, it's not about that. It's not about punishment or reward.
It's just cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Every action has a reaction, you know.
It's about understanding, like, our actions
have consequences.
Yeah.
And those consequences, you know, can last a lifetime and beyond, he says.
It's about that interconnectedness of all things and how
what we do matters, basically.
What we do matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love how he talks about, like, some people are so obsessed with, like, remembering past lives.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's the answer to everything.
Yeah. Like, if I could just unlock that,
right,
then I'll find happiness.
And he's like, no, no, no.
And he's like, no.
Focus on right now.
Focus on right now, like dwelling on the past.
You can't change the past.
Doesn't do any good.
It just keeps you stuck.
It keeps you stuck. And that really ties into that whole idea of, like, finding that freedom in this present moment.
Yeah, 100%. Make conscious choices now.
Learn from your past.
Yeah, but don't live in it.
Don't live in it.
Yeah, well said.
So I think as we, like, wrap up this whole discussion, I want to go back to, like, Muay Thai and meditation.
Okay, yeah.
It's such an interesting metaphor, right?
It is. It makes you think.
For how we can find these, like, unexpected paths to
growth.
Yeah.
To, like, deeper understanding.
And how, like, seemingly contradictory things can actually lead to these, like, incredible insights. Totally. It's like, what in your life is your Muay Thai?
Yeah. You know, is it running a marathon? Is it, like, getting lost in a creative project?
Could be anything.
Is it taking a walk in nature? Like, what is that thing for you?
What makes you feel fully alive, present?
Yes. And I think that's what this whole book really encourages us to do, to be open
to new experiences, yeah.
To those experiences, to question our assumptions.
Question everything.
And to really try to, like, cultivate that sense of peace, presence, and purpose.
Absolutely. And find your own unique path to get there.
And find your own unique path.
That's the beauty of it.
So, as a final thought, like, we would love for you to consider, like, what seemingly contradictory activity
in your own life,
yeah, could be the key to unlocking, like, a deeper sense of self-awareness, purpose,
and fulfillment. That's it.
So explore it, embrace the unknown, and see where it leads you.
Love it.
Until next time, keep diving deep.